I will call this meeting to order of the Anti-Hate Task Force LGBTQ cohort at 2:07 p.m.
Mhm. Dun,
Awesome.
dun, dun, dun.
Do I have a second for that?
I will second you.
Awesome, awesome. And all in favor of beginning our meeting, say aye.
I,
Verbal
I.
confirmation or hands, aye. Aye, aye. Do the ayes have it? Okay, wonderful. Adam? Ah, perfect, cool. Alrighty, so the meeting's called to order. And so we can start with our old business. Sorry, I'm bringing up my agenda. Okay, perfect. Here we are. So we'll do roll call, which is pretty easy. Philip Alexander Downey here, and I am here and present. So we can just go around. Ali,
I'm here.
awesome, and Adam,
I'm here.
perfect, and wonderful. So there weren't really previous meeting minutes to approve, but we can go into a little bit of discussion, pretty much about what we talked about in the last meeting, which was just our moving forward with writing policy recommendations that included funding for a physical LGBTQIA space and also funding and resources for LGBTQIA plus communities that are focused on those who are most underserved and disenfranchised, while we seek to provide services for all of our intersectional communities. So that was our discussion. And I would love to hear like feedback around that and in terms of like how you all envision our policy recommendations and what we will be um uh our how we shall move forward in presenting our final policy recommendation that we vote on and approve to the entire anti-hate task force on November,
Is
is
it
it
the ninth?
9th? Yes, I believe November
I think
9th.
it's the ninth.
Yes, I think it's the 9th as well. So yeah, I'll open up the floor for discussion.
Hmm. So I've been thinking about this and thinking about some of the other things that are happening around the state, around different centers and spaces. And I think that we have some great models already. I was thinking about like Frederick County and their model, or um, I think just I don't think Peachey County has a center yet, do they? They just have a person right now, right?
Yeah, but they opened like a physical space
Mhm.
that was like that may not be. I need to check into that, but I feel like Lee may have been at an opening of a physical space that I'm just not 100% sure. I thought it was in PG County. And if it's not specifically for LGBTQA plus folks, I think that it encompasses folks.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
So I was just thinking about like looking at what they started with, seeing what populations of people they started of the LGBTQIA population, what were the sub demographics in that population that they started to uh, offer services to, and how those services are funded. maybe one way we want to look at that to undergird the funding, the county funding. Usually with like granted funding, it's always better when you have another grantor that's, able to marry that funding together. And then just looking at our particular population of people, seeing what our age demographics are, and then matching those demographics to the center's demographics to the demographics of the county. So like, we know that people who are elderly need services. We know that youth need services. We know that people need educational services. We know that lower income people need services. But what are the numbers in Montgomery County? And then how do they relate to the LGBTQIA population? I think also looking at the survey is a good idea, a trans survey, to see what those numbers are. So just really being intentional about actually meeting the need and not having a high level kind of, I think we might need this. Let's just put money in this way. That's what I've been thinking about.
I completely agree with you. And, when we talk about the county funding and where the sources come from. And so, I know that within the county council / government spaces, it's the funding that will go into usually a county service that is already provided, or an NGO that's like a specific married partner. And so within, when we see that, I know that there are a couple of programs. One, actually, I know of one very specific program that has been intentional in this work and making sure that it has like the actual health needs. And then who also is the one who worked in conjunction with Amina's office from the LGBTQ Montgomery County Liaison's office, and that was Health and Human Services and the Ending HIV and AIDS Epidemic Program. And I think that when we talk, because the county, of course, we have all of these measures in place, but when they do spend the money, it's most likely going to go to a space where they're going to be choosing how that money then is given to organizations. And I know that my recommendation is that if the funding isn't directly going to the specific nonprofits that are doing the work in our community, then it's filtered through a program like the Ending HIV and AIDS program, who has been the only Montgomery County funder of LGBTQIA programs, who's like given specific dollars. And so I know that their work is culturally competent, as they're the ones who conducted the LGBTQ, or they're the ones who produced and worked with the LGBTQIA survey, and they have the capacity and also the working knowledge when they're working with our young folks. I mean, some things we can only get anecdotal experience because, of course, HIPAA violations. But in other spaces, we can definitely get the numbers and the demographics of the young people, and even the young, the young people, our service population. So the young people, our aging community, and then our other queer communities. And so, I see that there's one need right now when we talk about safety for people, with the current conflict that is happening. I mean, well, that has been happening in the Middle East. There are a lot of Jewish young people that are being attacked right now, and there are a lot of Muslim young people that are being attacked right now. And those intersection, and a lot of Palestinian young people that are being attacked right now, and those intersections of queerness make all of those attacks worse. And so when we're talking about spaces of how are we providing like community towards people, it's like I view the need to have that very culturally competent lens that is involved within this. And so because there are so many nuances that come to there are nuances when you talk about Black LGBTQ folks. There's nuances when you talk about trans Black queer folks, because like there are some people in the Black community who they're just getting over the hurdle of accepting queer and gay and lesbian and bi, and then a conversation talking about trans and non-binary folks is like, oh my gosh, I just got through this other hurdle, and now we have to have these other conversations. So that culturally competent piece where we're really working with organizations who are going to be very intentional. I know that there are unfortunately organizations in Montgomery County that work within the ending the HIV and AIDS epidemic that don't even mention queer people or LGBTQ folks or non-binary people or trans folks. Like, it doesn't even have antiquated terms like gay on a website. And so when I think about where these funds go, we really, however we write these policy recommendations, we need to address the need to get it into the right hands. And as you were saying, Ali, get it into, like, when it's going into the right hands, that it's actually benefiting those communities that need it the most. Because I know right now, in like when we're in Wheaton and Silver Spring, we're always maxing out on testing. We're maxing out on resources, like in a matter of like a couple of hours, giving away 100 free meals in September was wonderful and amazing. But there were also still some people with food and housing insecurities that came towards the end of the night. And it was like, without me, giving out like meal vouchers or strictly cash out of my pocket, there wasn't anything else that we can do. So it's like, it makes us so happy to be able to provide these resources, but then all of a sudden we have to stop the resources because the line's too long. And I want to ensure that we can get through the line and still have and meet the other needs of our community, because that area, although there's a lot of our service population, we haven't even reached we're reaching the rural parts of our county, but like those resources didn't even reach the rural parts of our county. So it's like going in spaces where we can ensure that the vast demographic and populations of Montgomery County are well taken care of, because as we know that if you are LGBTQIA plus, then every measurable outcome of wellness and success is diminished a little bit. And it's, and it's sad. And that, of course, that impacts with every single intersection that we face. And that we are, often all a part of. So, being religious minorities, what is the other, ethnic minorities and gender minorities. It's like we need to make sure that we're all ensuring that the resources are there for those individuals, and how we specifically write language to do that will be an interesting task.
I've been also thinking about in the education sphere, there is such a vast level of LGBTQIA people who are not completing like high school because of the level of homophobia and transphobia, right? And with our education bills we talk about people who are in school, but what happens when people leave school, right? And how do we how do we get people back on track, right? And is there space in this center for people to drop back in? Like, is there a drop back in program? Which is something that I know larger cities have. Yeah, being from Philadelphia, I know like the attic eventually moved into having this kind of drop back in resource. They never had a whole program, but somewhere that youth could check in and say, I really want to pursue my GED. I really want to pursue, these other things. And there was like, what did they call them? isn't like a life coach. I can't remember what they call them, but a life skills coordinator there to help them kind of be like, okay, well, you need to go from place A to place B to place C, and kind of help them get on track again, and get to a point where they could be self-sufficient, which only helps, in the long run, for them to have a more fulfilled life, and to avoid some of the other things that happen in the future when you don't complete your education, right? Um, so I think that having in our programming, and this is not actually youth specific because it happens at all levels, um, some type of life skills programming is important. And, and also having, like you said, a Department of Human Services, somewhere people can drop in and know that they can have someone to talk to about social services, like how I talk to someone about being not having enough food and getting the paperwork filled out without feeling like they're going to discriminate against me because I'm LGBTQIA, right? Um, Growing up in a city and growing up with drag queens, basically, I know how hard it was to have those services filled for that population of people. And often they would just go without it because they didn't want to experience the discrimination of having to go into those buildings. So I know right now we have some, I don't know in Montgomery County, but in like Delaware, they had people in the libraries that would do that. So I don't think it's impossible to have someone in a community center to do that type of thing. So thinking of it as an LGBT, this is the way I'm thinking of it as LGBTQIA community center. So what are you thinking about, Adam? I feel like I have taken up a lot of space and time. I want to let you speak.
No, you guys are fine, and I apologize I missed the last meeting. Yeah, I think just working to create this center, the space, whatever it is. I appreciate all your comments and thoughts about it. I think, especially what Philip said resonated with me. Making sure it's a, I don't know if this is the best way to say it, but like an intersectional space that supports your queer, gay identity, and there's always an and with it, whatever else that is. I think that can be challenging, but certainly I think aspirational and something we should try to be doing. Um, and whatever kind of needs to happen to make that work, to get the funds for it, the grants. I think it's great. So I don't really know that I have much more to add.
Thank you. Like Adam, Ali, when you were talking, I heard a lot of things that fall under case management. And I think that that's extremely important because, and just as Adam just said, there's always like your queerness and it's like that's one small facet of our identities, but I heard this on like line today and someone said that like it's not hard being queer, it's that people make it hard for us to be queer. And so like in that, like yes, it's like we could just live our lives and we wouldn't really have to have these discussions about pride and belonging and things like that if people weren't trying to exclude. And I think that piece with like making sure that not only we can meet people where they are, but as you said, Ali, that they have some place to like re-enter the system or to fall back on. So I think that when we do talk about that, like and it's like an interesting dynamic because like we are like I provide, and I know that like within the faith community, like Ali, like you provide, and like there's counseling in spaces where it's like I provide services, I provide wellness services and linkages to care and things like that, but a big piece of that's missing, of course, is case management, because you need full-time individuals who are there that can they can call up and then you can link them with resources immediately. I only link with people with resources when they send me an email or we're at an event. And so it's like, you know, when we're at the event, like I said, it's like we always max out on services. And so we know that there's a need all the time. Like Lee Blender from Trans Maryland has like a backlog of, I think, 2 to 3 months of individuals who are literally in line waiting for gender marker name change services. And so it's like we have so many spaces where individuals, like, you know, and those gender marker name change services, I bet that's the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean? Like that is an affirming, that's something to help with affirming care, but it's like, I know, and I, you know, I can't say this 100%, but usually there is also some type of housing or food insecurity. There's some job insecurity. You know, one of the things why I even do programs and events is literally to give LGBTQ gig workers, performers, and artist jobs, and some entrepreneurs as well. Like make sure that there are spaces where they're being hired, because when you meet and are faced with all of these like pieces of intersectionality, that like development piece isn't happening as much. And so when we're talking about, you know, outside of this space, like, you know, with the MoCo Pride Center, who is one of my partners, like or, you know, and I'm also representative of all of those things. There's not enough of us to do all this work too. That's a big thing where it's like we all wear like a million different hats. And so like, you know, when we're in spaces and it's like, oh, I'm talking about you know, this is coming from a policy space where we're talking about the anti-hate task force. But within the MoCo Pride Center and Living Your Truth, we're on the ground trying to give these services and make sure there's a space for them. And so that like that case management piece is huge. That like transitional housing that Ali, in my notes from the first meeting you spoke about, is massive. Because like, and then within the survey, I was speaking with an older community member when we were introducing the survey and working with MMCTV to really like have a discussion around it. She said, and this is Dr. Lorraine Hutchins, who won't mind. She said, I don't know if today, if I filled out that survey, I would feel safe in Montgomery County. Because one of the things on the survey, I think that we had a good number of queer folks who said that they feel safe in Montgomery County. And right now with the attacks from Moms for Liberty, along with like different hate groups, and the fact that like even on our two largest social media platforms, Facebook and or social media advertising platforms, Facebook and Instagram, they've eliminated all LGBTQ interest groups from advertising spaces. So, you know, you can do some research around, you know, you can look up Michelle Visage, but you can't find RuPaul. And if people don't know who that is, then that is, you know, they work together, but, you know, RuPaul is the person who would be considered to be more famous. You can't find any famous drag performers or any people from like queer spaces unless you're not specifically talking about their queerness. And so like that makes it more difficult for community members to find each other and to even find digital spaces. So, you know, if we could meet the intersections of so many young people and provide even digital spaces for them to come into where they knew it was safe. And then of course there were resources and funding resources to ensure that we were able to advertise to meet those people. It's like, you know, when we're talking about it now, I'm looking up like I have to use interest categories like Audre Lorde or James Baldwin or Real Housewives or anything that's like associated with queerness. To try and find people that might want that, you know, that need the services to make sure that they can come into the spaces where they can get those services. And so of course I don't know the specific answer to that, like we advertise off of those platforms as well, but there's certainly a need for, like right now, support groups is a big thing, and having support groups for folks to talk about their feelings and be in spaces where we're dealing with like a lot of complicated emotions and subject matter just surrounding so many different identities. And there needs to be an outlet where people can discuss it in a safe and non-threatening and non-harmful environment. You know, there are so many different cultures and individuals that we work with on a regular basis that they only know it's safe when you intentionally let them know that it is 100% safe.
And I want to take the moment to say this. If someone's watching this back that has an LGBTQIA child, especially, I mean, it's going to be very clear, especially a trans child in Montgomery County, this is the first time I've experienced this, and this just happens to come with being an old gay, I think, even though I'm not 50 yet, but I've been out for 35 years. This is the first time I've lived in a county that is at the intersection of wealth and the ability for children to transition before they are able to let's see how I'm going to say this, have like lots of friends to talk about their transition. So parents are, cis parents are talking to their children about their trans identity, and they don't have one. They have a cis identity now, which I believe that parents are doing this truly because they think that that is the right thing to do. You are a girl or you are a boy, that's who you say you are, and so you are not trans, you are a girl, you are a boy. However, and they're doing that because they're afraid. It's scary to have a trans child, I believe. I believe there's also some shame, but whatever. Unfortunately, eventually, people know who they are, and they will need support for who they are. And they don't have any access to trans people because they've been built into a life that doesn't affirm who they are, because they have this identity very early that says, I am this person. And yes, you are that person. I am a man. I am a trans man, but I am a man. However, when you are born AFAB or AMAB, assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth, and you transition to something else that still makes you a trans person. And so there is a subsection of our community now who are coming into their 20s who have a very confused identity, and I'm experiencing it in different ways when I talk to different youth and young adults, where they're like, I didn't know I was stealth. I wasn't trying to be stealth. Like, but now I have the shame about being stealth my whole life. And so I do believe that this community center is also for those youth who never had a community and didn't know they needed one. Yeah.
Awesome. I was going to say, am I on mute? But I was not. I think that you are 100% right. And that community piece is extremely important because we do have the resources. And as you said, if there are parents watching, like when the people hear the scary word of trans affirming care, and automatically think that their child is going to undergo surgery. Affirming care is just treating your human being, child, or people with respect, and utilizing the names or allowing them to just be themselves. It is an evolution of being, and there are spaces where people are allowed to grow within their walks of every part of life. And so we just want to ensure that nothing that your child hears makes them want to harm themselves or harm other people, because the world is an often hostile place to everyone. And as you add on those margins of, you add on the marginalization, then it becomes even that much more hostile to people. And so it's like, you know, that part of humanity where you just think about how you would like to be accepted in spaces. I always encourage everyone to extend that same grace. And young people, even though they're young and they might not have the specific words or vernacular to express certain feelings, they do know who they are, and they are able to learn through and be in uncomfortable and sometimes difficult situations, and but they know who they are. And so we want to make those situations as healthy as possible. So I think that within that, just because I want to keep us on track, and I don't
Yeah, let's keep going. Yep.
yes, exactly. So Adam or Ali, did you all have any more comments for old business?
Mm-mm.
All right. Okay, so now we can move on to new business. And so this is about how we want to, I guess, present the policy information and then divvy up sections so that we can come back into our 11-2 meeting with a working draft
Mhm.
that we can then put together components and then you know, finalize or make any changes to for our 11-9 presentation the week after that. So there are policy recommendations on the website. Selena, are you available to send us the cohort recommendations that have already been the recommendations that have already taken place with the two cohorts that have presented?
So I can send them, but they're also on the website, and I can
Oh,
send you to the link to that. So
yeah.
the recommendations, all the videos of all of the cohort sessions, as well as the full task force. But I can send this to you. I started to say, because I can find it really fast. But not so fast, so we know. So here's the link to the website. And then you'll see it's pretty clear where it says Muslim cohort report, Jewish cohort report. But again, I can stick them in here for you. And sometimes I think folks have found it helpful to, oh, did I send that to? It didn't go to everyone, hold on. Find it helpful to look at the last meetings of those who are close to presenting. So,
Mhm.
you know, AAPI, for example, has gone pretty far. They've had a meeting every week though, so
Wow.
they've done quite a bit of work.
Oh, I just found the cohort report. Oh, okay. So they presented this, and this is power control. Diversity. Wonderful. This is a good read. If you all
I see it.
okay, wonderful.
And you see the Muslim cohort started it differently. So they started with their recommendations, and then they went through the history and gave some other, you know, the rest of their presentation, and they ended with their recommendations. which I thought was kind of interesting. You know, this is where we're going.
Mhm.
The structural bias, equity definitions, training civic leaders, communication strategies, and then reporting, training, community engagement to celebrate history and diversity, equity and access, and communication. Okay, I like this. So this will be something I would, recommend that each of us kind of read through these. I also, and we can, if we would like to, can make this an official motion. If we could, prior to our meetings, how would you all like to delineate and break up work? I certainly don't mind doing some design work to make it nice and and pretty and all that good stuff. And then I, of course, at the last meeting recommended that we take full advantage of the county LGBTQIA plus survey that was just released, along with our, we constantly receive anecdotal information from community members. And so like, specific to each of our experiences, I would always recommend that we include those inside of our own, specific whatever parts we're doing, just to ensure that like there is diverse representation. And I'll also reach out to get some more anecdotal information from the Coalition of Inclusive Schools, along with like the Montgomery County and Living Your Truth constituency base that we work with, just to get as close to the pulse of what people not only are feeling right now, but what they feel like on a regular basis as county residents. Because one thing that survey reported, reported but didn't report, one thing that the survey showed is that there weren't a lot of like underserved communities of color who were fully reporting, like who were survey as a part of their demographic information, who were taking the survey. And so to me that means that there's a large section of individuals, and in all of my work I know that the largest like homeless population is usually like queer youth of color and queer youth. And so I went in Montgomery County, and so I want to ensure that like not only we are taking into account that there are individuals who the survey did not reach for whatever reason, but that these individuals who the survey isn't reaching also have outcomes that are not favorable and need more help and assistance. And so, that case management piece, I just keeps coming back to me, because it's, we need to reach the young people, and some of our like queer youth, I can get them out to a ball. Like I can get them out to like something that's fun, or like an exciting drag show, especially if it's like free and open to the public. But then like trying to get them like, into treatment programs or on prep and things like that. Those are items where it's like you need constant touches, you need trust within our community. And so
Right. Yeah, I think it's a great idea to kind of to divide up the work. It'll be a lot easier to see where we are, see what we need to keep, come back together on, maybe what's more difficult to do separately or what we'll need more work on. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
So do you all want to, within these two reports, and the few videos that we can watch with the other cohort members discussing, is there a good deadline in mind where we would like to send back? Because we're not, we'll do all of this work offline and then meet again to present findings in our like initial drafts, so that we can like finalize. Is there a time? Is there a time? Is there a time that is feasible to have read and gone over these? Because I know that we are all extremely busy with everything that's going on.
Let's see. So the good news is that it's the middle of the month, so we still have time. Hmm. I said that and then I looked at my calendar. uh, what's it looking like for everyone else?
I mean, since we don't have a meeting next week, I do have an event on Friday. I can, since our next meeting is, I would say for me, either the 27th or the 26th or the 30th for me would be like good days where I would be able to ensure that everything's gotten through, and that I have like my pieces kind of like sussed out to kind of bring back to the table and say like these are the things that I can add, and then where I'm comfortable with, I stay in my cultural competency lane, and then we figure out what's missing after we kind of all do that process.
Actually, the 30th is really great for me. Not the 20. I'm not. The 20s are bad, but the 30th is wide open. How's the 30th for you, Adam? No, not good.
In terms of, are we adding another meeting, or I'm a little confused here?
No, we were just talking about having gone through the Muslim cohort and the Jewish cohort reports, and then basically sending, and this would just be a quick email that would just say that like what portions of our report that you would feel comfortable
I see.
on,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, that I could, the 30th is a fine deadline. I'm only seeing in the chat the Jewish report. I'm not seeing a Muslim report.
okay,
Oh, it is like the.
I'll send a link now. Oh,
I think it's
actually,
like the third one or the fourth one down.
I'm only seeing three, and two of them are Jewish. Okay. I'm
okay,
seeing it in the, all right, now I got it. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay.
Awesome. By the 30th.
Yeah, I'm happy to look through it and look through those two and figure out kind of how we're going to do something similar. That's fine.
Okay, awesome. So that works as well, and we'll send that via email. And then, of course, like what you feel comfortable with contributing, so that essentially we have, I know that this, because that's the 30th, and then on the 2nd is our next meeting. And so we essentially would need, because we present on the 9th our full policy recommendation. So I just want to make sure that we're coming into a time crunch. So essentially we have like the pieces where we feel that are comfortable, and then where we feel we're comfortable at, and then we'll also look and match up, say like what are we missing.
Right.
I'll bring it, of course, like I said, it's so great we have that the LGBTQI plus survey, because there's so much amazing information since it was just released, that we can utilize, and I know that we'll also utilize our specific community expertise to write these policy recommendations. So that works, and that's lovely. Okay.
That is awesome. Alrighty.
So we divide
We have a
into
plan.
paths, and we're preparing for our 11-2 meeting. We did a timeline, which is fantastic. Is there any other business that needs to be
Well, I
addressed?
just have one, and I'm sorry if I missed this somewhere. You both had mentioned this kind of survey of LGBTQ plus people in Montgomery County.
Mhm.
Where do I find that?
I will send I have a copy on livingyourtruth.org, so I'll send you a link.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I'll send it via email literally right now. Is there any other business that you all would like to discuss?
For your meeting on November 2nd, do you want that to be longer than an hour or just an hour?
I think it probably needs to be longer than an hour.
Yeah, I would say if we have time for an hour and 30 minutes, that would be better. But if I want to meet with everyone's schedule, so does that work for everyone?
Like 1 to 2:30?
That's
I
good
can
one.
do. Yeah.
Perfect.
Second. I'm gonna look right now. November 2nd. November 2nd is Thursday. Yep. I can do that.
Okay. So I'm sending this over to the group Gmail message if I can find. I have too many tabs open on my computer,
That's the thing.
right? It really is. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm replying all to that message that I had sent yesterday, and that is going to have the link to the survey. All right, let me know if that one works for everybody. It should it should automatically download a PDF. I just sent it via email. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so that is good. We all have our like direction, and I feel very comfortable with this, so that is fantastic. And so does anybody have any announcements they would like to make for the good of the group? All right, well, I will call this meeting to close at 2:53 p.m. Do I have a second? Awesome. All right, all in favor of closing? Raise hands. Wonderful. It's unanimous. I love it. Okay, well, thank you all so much for coming. The meeting is adjourned, and we will see each other. We'll talk online and then see each other on the 2nd. And you all have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.